Welcome to Built to Finish. I'm your host, Stephen Pivnik. Join me each week as we explore the journeys of audacious goal setters. This includes experienced founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs sharing pivotal moments that propel their success. We'll also be talking with endurance athletes who push the limits of physical and mental ability. This show is brought to you by Acresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services to help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Let's get started. And welcome back to another episode of Built to Finish. Today's guest is, as far as I can tell, the world's first and only party coach. His work has appeared in GQ, the Washington Post, and the Los Angeles Times. He believes partying will save humanity. A self-described nerd from the University of Chicago who came up in the underground of the rave and music scenes. Alongside his own struggles with validation, alcohol, and substances in the post-pandemic chaos, he created the Party Within, a framework. I can't wait to learn more about this. Evan Cudworth, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steven. So happy to be here. Let's party.
I've never had any guest say that, but I love it. Let's party. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning here. Let's party.
Yeah.
So please do explain, what is the Party Within framework?
Yeah. Well, I always love to just hear from other people too. I think part of my mission too is to maybe redefine the word party or to bring it into what it means in kind of this modern time frame. So I would love to hear from you. What does party mean to you? How do you think about partying?
Good question. I've never started off a show with a question to me. This is great. Thank you for doing that. What does a party mean to me? That means going out with friends, enjoying ourselves, and typically celebrating something, a birthday, an anniversary, or celebrating Friday or Saturday.
Heck yes. Yeah, I think that celebration is a really good way to start. I think that like participation together is a good way to get there. I find it interesting. The word party actually has a really interesting etymology. And it's actually a contronym in that it almost means its own opposite in certain ways. So party can both, originally meant, like to split off as in a hunting party, right? Like you'd kind of split off in someone else, but also that there is a togetherness inside of it. So it both means to separate and also to come together. And so I always like to start with that because I am a paradox. I think I represent both wellness, and I track my sleep and I eat well. I do all these things. And I also believe that getting messy and celebrating and letting our egos go and dissolving our egos into the party to celebrate or to mourn or to grieve or to be human with other humans. For me, partying is like being alive with other humans in a way that is maybe this is a good entry, similar to like endurance sports. It does have an ending, right? So like party is not, you can't party every day, all day. That's not a party, right? It has to be contained and something that is, you're not supposed to do every day, but there's something special about it.
My God, we can't party all day, every day. That's so sad. So what led you to come up with this framework? I know you've had some challenges, during your university days. How did you get to that level? And what did you do to overcome them?
Yeah, so I think a lot of us we have certain quests in this life, right? And some of us are questing for excellence. Some of us are questing for belonging. Some of us need solitude. Some of us need to pass on our genes. There's different quests that I have. And I think the one that I have been blessed and burdened with is one of belonging. What does it mean to belong? How do we belong to a group, or how do we belong to maybe something bigger than ourselves, to a higher purpose? And maybe that doesn't include, what the crowd is doing, and we have to find belonging somewhere else. So I think that for me is I both found, but also chased to my own self-destruction, belonging in, fraternity life, and in the rave culture and underground and music. And I truly felt so much belonging in those places. And also, I falsely believed that maybe the entry to those places required a certain level of alcohol or drugs, or required me to maybe give over parts of myself that I thought were really valuable to that group. And so for me, the idea that we can update and change and shift and modernize our idea of what a party means and what it means to belong, to to support us in whatever the world needs right now. I do believe like the red lights are blaring everywhere about this loneliness crisis and what's happening in the world. If people are getting well but feeling more anxious and alone than ever, how can partying be updated to help people move through that?
So you're actually helping people redefine the word party so it's less associated with going out there, getting high and drunk and dancing all night long.
Yes. Not that those things are bad. I'm like fully pro those things if they are supporting you in your life. If you are constantly waking up on the other side of those and are not feeling belonging, or if you're feeling isolated and those things are contributing to that, it's time to update the definition.
Okay. So let's go with one thing specific. And what advice would you give to folks that may be drinking too much or just aren't happy with their relationship with alcohol? Because there's so much content out there about, how to minimize, if not eliminate that from your life. So like what specific advice would you give to somebody that's currently challenged with that?
So one of the things I like to think about when I talk about social life in general is a low agency social life versus a high agency social life. And low agency can be defined as like reactive, responsive, autopilot, right? So if you're, and I lived a while as I thought I was high agency, but I was quite low agency in that I needed to go get a drink the first time I got to a bar, right? Like that was my autopilot, right? It was like I walk into a bar, boom, I go get a drink. This is what happens. And every weekend I was kind of doing similar things. And I was in these patterns of, I thought I was connected to things, but I was not intentionally making a lot of decisions. And I was quite dependent on substances or certain types of validation. And so shifting to a high agency social life doesn't mean that you necessarily have to eliminate those things, but are you able to walk into any room, to walk into a place and feel like I have the agency to create what party means like for me? And flip that script from perhaps the first thing I do when I get to a bar, and I work with clients on this, is how do you want to feel? So sometimes people want to feel connected, or they want to feel more joy, or they want to feel, and so thinking about what are things that can generate that, not just in you, but in other people. So one of the first things I do when I get to a party is I kind of scan the room. I look for other anxious people or people who look like they're kind of off. And I will literally I'll go over to them. I'll be like, I'm feeling a little anxious. How about you? And just start a conversation around that and make somebody else feel like they belong, right? And when my dopamine receptors receive that type of connection right off the bat, it totally resets, at least for me and for a lot of the clients that I work with. It's just a different mindset of this is a high agency way to move through a social life in a world. Instead of being dependent on a substance, I'm creating something from within me from a high agency place.
Interesting. So instead of getting your dopamine hit via the first beer or the first shot, you're getting that hit by making that connection who's feeling as awkward as you are in that moment.
Yes. And if you look at politicians and CEOs and people that are traditionally quite, they might be called extroverted. A lot of these people are actually, really do need to recharge in time, but they have either consciously or subconsciously mastered this idea of like creating sustainable energy in their life through these connections.
So it's game time for them, right? They have to turn it on, and it may not be like that all the time, but they know that in that environment, they need to be able to turn it on.
Yes.
And do you think it's that easy for somebody to be introverted most of the time, but then from a professional setting, they just need to turn it on?
So I do believe that almost nothing worthwhile in this world comes without pain. That pain is so necessary. The kids right now are calling it struggle maxing, where
Struggle. I haven't heard that term yet.
yeah. So they, like, how do you struggle max? But to fall in love with that struggle. And that's what I try to help people with. I think, and we saw this with, was that the gold medalist, Alyssa Liu, who was, she loves to struggle. She loves to fall on the ice over and over and over again. And then when she gets out there and she does her performance, you can see that like the party within her is out there, but she had to struggle to get to that place. And so that's what I offer to my clients is I was like, if you want to have fun, it's very possible, but we are reframing your mindset around you have to struggle and be in the pain of liking being rejected, of liking being in a place where you feel I don't really belong here, or I'm awkward. And how do you fall in love with that pain and that struggle so that it feels even better on the other side?
How long does that take? Like if I'm going out tonight, and one of the first things that's going to happen is there's going to be drinks served. So what is the first step that I personally can take tonight to not go for that drink, either right away or maybe just throughout the evening?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways we can start. I guess I'd like to start with, what would you like to feel more of in your life in general, either in your social life or just in life in general?
Huh. Oh, that's a great question. That's deep. I mean, I think I have a pretty rich life. What I want to feel more of, I guess, in control, because I totally agree with you. When I'm in these social environments, or when many people are in these social environments, the first go-to activity is a drink. Let's get a drink. Where's the bar?
Hmm.
Everybody else is drinking. I got to get one too. So if I really think about it deeply, that I'm giving away a certain level of control because that impulse is just taking over. So I guess my answer, without thinking about it too much further, is control.
Yeah, I want to feel more in control. All right, let me sit with that's the, I do hear elements of that, but I think that one it's good, but I would actually say I don't know if that's possible. Right? If only because, a lot of growth mindset and at least my practice is learning how can I talk about controlling inputs. We can't control the outcome, right? So, but we can control the inputs, right? So one way that you can feel more in control is what are inputs that contribute to feelings of like maybe feeling more in control, right? So it's what are your go-to small talk questions? Like, what do you typically ask when you go out?
Hey everyone, just a quick reminder that the Built to Finish podcast is brought to you by Acresis. Acresis have helped over 30 founders generate over $1 billion in wealth via strategic acquisitions or investor recapitalizations. If you're the owner of a middle market company and want to explore what a potential exit will look like for you so that you can finally realize the value of what you've been working so hard on, please do contact Acresis via the website acresis.com or hit me up on LinkedIn for more information at Stephen Pivnik. Now, back to the show.
What do you typically ask when you go out to a party?
Small talk. I think it's the usual. Anything from, what are you binge watching lately? Where have you been lately? Where are you going next? Vacation wise or, business trip wise? How are the kids doing? Things like that.
Yeah. So one thing I just might offer, and this is one of those where you're gonna have to trust me and just see what happens with it, but finding some sort of a question or idea of asking people around something, you know, where do you you know, where do you feel in control or not in control in your life right now? Right. It's a
Okay.
little deeper question than
Sure.
small talk, maybe for people. And you're kind of giving over a little bit of control, but you're controlling where that small talk is going, right? Like you
Right.
have a level of control over that. And because what I tend to notice, and maybe this will make a little more sense if I speak about it in this way, but for me, my go-to question for many years was what's bringing you joy? And because I wanted to just feel more joy in my life. And even if somebody wasn't, it kind of felt a little startled with that. What I was doing, and this is where we get a little woo-woo-ish, but if I am asking that question, I am becoming a portal for that emotion to happen, right? So if I'm saying what's bringing you joy, they are experiencing that emotion. Either, yes, I'm experiencing this here. It's flowing into me. They're going to have that in their mind, an idea. It's going to pass on to the next person they talk to. So I'm literally like creating that emotion by asking the questions around those things. And so if you want to feel control, like asking people about what they do control and what they don't, you're going to create that feeling with other people, which can be great, but I think it might have second level effects too of, okay, if we're trying to control this situation, what does that do in a social situation? Does it make people more defensive if they feel like they need control? Or is that an empowering feeling? Because control, it can be very empowering too. But just thinking about those second order effects of what going out to a social situation and wanting control, what does that do to you and to people around you?
Interesting. I'm just envisioning me getting together with my friends tonight and starting off with that instead of the usual, hey bud, what's bringing you the most joy right now?
Yeah.
Their first response is going to be, what did you take? And let me have some.
Yes. Okay. And this I would get this all the time. So I partied fully sober for 2 years. I went to hundreds of raves. I went to major festivals, and I would ask this question. And then like the number one question I would get asked back is, what are you on? And I was like, I'm on life, baby. I'm simply on life. And it could be cheesy and cringy. And I had to accept the judgment that would come out of that. And that wasn't always comfortable. But knowing that I could literally I could be in a crowd of people who are on ecstasy or who are on some other drug, and simply by being there and not taking anything, I would feel those second order effects, often residually in my mind or in my body. And there are studies and things that show around that. But simply that idea of becoming a portal for that thing by believing that emotion is possible, call it placebo effect or whatever you want to, but we create the reality that we are existing in. And the more you learn how that is truly possible for you, it's how long does it take? You asked earlier. I have clients where this takes a couple weekends, and I have people who 3 years later, they call me up and they're like, yo, it took me so long, but like, I'm fine. I'm doing it. It's happening in my life. And it kind of depends on how conditioned your brain, body, and soul are to the reality that you're in.
So I haven't done this in the past in other episodes, but I'm going to challenge the audience right now. At your next social gathering, instead of the usual small talk, ask somebody what's bringing them joy right now. And please comment down below what their response was and how the evening progressed from there because of that opening question. I'm really curious.
I love this. I love to hear this. And that's always my ask on here. I'm not here to sell anything, really. I'm not here to talk about that. I just truly, I believe that our generation, this time right now, we've been given this incredible gift, which is for the first time, we get to choose whether we want to be lonely or not. We get to choose whether we want to socialize. And in most other, it was requisite. Like, you had to be with your family. You had to go to work. You had to be in physical places with other people. And due to technology and AI and all these other things, we really don't have to. You can make the choice to live a very different life. And that's fine. But now that we have this choice, it's creating all these second level effects of, okay, how do we choose to connect with the time that we do have?
So you bring up a really very obviously hot topic, AI. What role do you think AI plays in loneliness or dealing with loneliness, other than the obvious? You know what? I can actually, if I have half an hour in the car, I can talk to ChatGPT and have a conversation. So I'm assuming you mean something deeper than that, but I'll let you answer.
Yes. So in so many things, I'm an optimist. I'm kind of, from a spiritual level, I consider myself almost a Taoist of, kind of like, I believe that everything is constantly balancing itself out. And with AI, there are so many gifts and things that we will be given, and an ability to learn and to have these deeper conversations and to move quicker. Things are just moving so much quicker because of what we can do with AI. Now, when we outsource the pain, when we reduce the friction of what it used to mean to connect and to risk being socially awkward and to be in those places, when we reduce and eliminate that friction. And I'd be curious to hear your take from kind of like an endurance element of this, of things that become so easy. If there's no friction, the meaning disappears. And so I think the fear that I have is with all this extra time that we have, that AI is going to create for people, creating true meaning that has friction in it is going to become more difficult. And so it's a convoluted way of saying, I think in some ways AI is going to represent for a large group of people the same thing that, like a highly processed food, or things like we have a need for calories, right? Like humanity needs calories, and we have to produce food to support this number of people. But I think a lot of people will be consuming AI and using this in a way that is kind of frictionless and probably bad for the collective. But some people are going to make a choice to use it in a different way.
Okay. Do you have any specific examples of using it in a very positive and constructive way?
Yeah. So for me, it's helped a lot with note taking. This is just for somebody who's like ADHD and was always a little bit chaotic. I find it really valuable to be able to go back and review and have those things there. But I actually do think the ability to create more conversational learning. I was listening to this great podcast this week from Derek Thompson at the Atlantic, who's talking about like we're in this very like oral time where we moved from a very literate society from the past 2000 years, from Plato all the way up till social media. And social media represents this more oral, more like Homeric poetry kind of conversation, right? We're on a podcast right now,
Hmm.
right? And that there is so much more sort of conversational side, but that means that truth itself is a lot more, it can shift a lot quicker, and we don't have the same source of truth. So I think there are actually some benefits to that. While we don't all have to agree on one thing, we can actually have these really deeper connections and conversations and tribal ways to connect with each other. But the cost of that is that a static solo, like I'm learning this on my own, is going to feel more and more lonely.
I see. I see. All right. So I know you're not here to sell anything, but let's talk about your framework
Sure.
in a little bit more detail. What exactly is it? Is it a book? Is it a course? Is it an online seminar? What are the details of it?
Yeah, so it's called The Party Within, and it's a 7-stage structure that has developed quite organically over about 5 years of coaching, where I've been working with clients who typically I worked with a lot of like DJs and artists and musicians in the music scene who are working on balancing wellness in their social life. And now it's, again, the primary people are going to be about like 25 to 40, are in that transitional side time in their social life, who are realizing that I've been looking outside of myself to fulfill my social life. So it's a shifting from a low agency to a high agency social life. It's called The Party Within. So it's finding, how do I self-generate my social battery and things like that along there. It moves from kind of a dopamine detox, like learning what you really are lacking and what those triggers are for, what do I miss when I take away things. So I ask people to do a 3-week, it's called a wellness bender. And it's a, you know, 21 days of, whole food diet, cold showers in the morning, dance for 3 minutes every morning, call a friend every day, compliment a stranger. So it's helping them to like rewire not just their brains, but their bodies for, how do we self-generate some of these things? Do I actually have a party within me? And what does that feel like in my body, not just in my brain? And so there's journaling and there's missions each week, but really, if I had to describe it, it's a shift away from trying to think yourself out of this into, how do I retrain my body so I'm not thinking about what is confidence and what are these things. It's shifting you into, naturally, I have this party within me, and by being of service to people around me, by being a portal to these other things, more naturally, these things will happen.
I love it. So it's not 75 hard, it's 21 days partying
Yes.
by redefining partying.
Yes. Yes. And 75 hard I've done it, I think 3 or 4 times. And it's been so important to me for resetting what I thought was possible in my life. And I tell people from the beginning, if this party within, it's going to be really difficult and you're going to want to quit and you're going to feel awkward. People will call me, I have, mostly it's run through a group program. So I'll run about, 15 to 20 people at a time. We'll do 7 weeks. I've also done a full 7-month cycle, which is really awesome. But that level of commitment, I only do that about once every 2 years. So I'm gonna do another one of those soon. But these, it creates a cycle that both you can run through it, but it is meant to be repeated, right? So you have a cycle of this. And so once you go through the cycle, you will experience a shift and change. And then you can come back to the beginning and kind of.
Interesting. And I'm assuming that if and when you come back, you're coming in as a different person and you're having a totally different experience while doing the same exact things.
Exactly. So,
Interesting.
and let me give you an example of somebody that would come through. So somebody who typically maybe had been fully in that party rave scene, maybe they really cut down their alcohol a couple years ago, and they're in this stage of, I don't feel like I can stay out very late anymore. My social battery is burnt. I don't really have a tribe of people. So we do a whole reset. The second stage of the cycle is called Make Peace with Ghosts. And it's all about making peace with this past versions of you who really supported those, and to not demonize or say that this was bad, but say, these supported you at your time in your life. How do we make peace with that? And then there's a whole cycle of what do you want to feel more of? And eventually setting you up to, are you creating a tribe and a ceremony and experience that you can build this around? So for example, I did this in my life when I was living out in Los Angeles. I was, very heavy in the music rave scene, but I was in LA, moved out there from New York, and I wanted more LA friends. And I knew they were really into astrology and like moon circles. And I was like, I do not believe in any of this crap. Like, this is dumb, but I'm kind of interested, what if we did? So I met some friends out there. I lived right on the beach in Venice and found this couple, and the woman was really into astrology. And so we started hosting moon circles on the beach every other week. And it was called a skeptic's moon circle. And so it was made for like intellectuals who didn't believe in this cycle, but we tried to package what are like the archetypes of this type of energy. What does this energy mean in the world? And we, by the, everywhere I went, when I went to weddings or when I was at the gym, and people asked what I did, I was like, do you want to come to this skeptic's moon circle? It grew from like 10 to 15, eventually 70 people, 100 people are coming to this thing. And I had this group and tribe of people. And then we started bringing in music and yoga, and it turned into a fitness thing. And then we were dancing, and it turned into this whole kind of self-sustaining tribe and ceremony built around what I wanted to feel more of, which at the time was kind of this tribal energy. And so I equip people with the tools to whatever that is in your life. How are you starting to build a tribe and experience that you can invite people into that's going to create this thing?
I love it. Well, just like I expected, this was a fascinating conversation on a very interesting topic. Thank you so much for spending the time with me this morning. How can people find you and get more information?
Thank you so much, Stephen. Just Google the world's first party coach or party coach, and I'll show up. And my only ask would be, start asking people, be that portal to connection or joy or whatever that is in your life. Humanity needs you to go party.
Party coach. I just Googled party coach and I've got a limo bus.
Really? Well, partycoach.me is where you can find me. Is my website.
Partycoach.me.
Yeah.
Perfect. We'll put that in the show notes. Again,
Perfect.
Evan, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Stephen.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of the Built to Finish podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do like and comment. It helps the show a lot. Thank you again, and until next time. That's a wrap for this episode of Built to Finish. Thank you for tuning in. For show notes and more details, head over to podcast.stephenpivnik.com. Special thank you to our sponsor, Accresis, offering tailored, high-impact advisory services that help founders get to their finish line with a strategic acquisition or majority investor recapitalization. Catch you next week.